as black people, again, we gotta kind of get back into focus on us, because if we don't, then it just becomes the gang thing. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
definitely a
And
game.
that's we fall into.
It's the Democrips and the Republicans. You know, it's
And
they
right,
throw they got their colors up there. You can't. They throwing their
throw it
colors
up,
up,
throw it up, throw your shit up.
and we have to recognize that's really what it is, and we are really operating as it's gang. Like we're out here calling out our sign. Like if we are really being honest with ourselves as a people, the vast majority of us are not liberal to the. We're not liberal. In a lot of aspects,
Well,
we're really,
say it again. Say it again for the
yeah, yeah,
people in the
yeah.
back,
If we're
please,
really going to be honest with ourselves, to the term, as a people, we're not liberal. You can't say Dr. King was liberal. You can't say Malcolm X was liberal. You can't say liberal in that fashion because they weren't. They were more conservative in a lot of areas.
Ian.
Malcolm wanted his gun.
Right. Listen, Ian, right there. I'm gonna pause you right there just so we can stay there, because I wanted to say two quick things. I don't want to pause your thought, but it does. And on the same token, people hear that and they say, "Well, they weren't Republican." It's not about that. I love the fact you said that, because that is the facts. If you understand those people, but again, we have to remove
The
the branding
brand.
from our brain, because we feel like, well, that's black and that's white. No,
Right.
it's just the way. Let me say this. I don't want to go on and on. Only thing I wanted to make a point right there with that point is that they weren't liberal, and some of the things that they were focused on were not things that are typically related to being liberal. Meaning that some of the things they were focused on was Malcolm X, obviously, do for self. NOI, Nation of Islam, was do for self. I had this conversation with somebody before, and the first thing, they were black, and the first thing they wanted to point out was all the flaws in the Nation of Islam. Cool. I'm not here to argue. I'm not part of the Nation of Islam. But if you look at some of the tenets of that group that were black, one of the first things they focused on, things that we're talking about today, NOI focused on. Malcolm X himself was a convict. We all know that, right? Whether you read the
Detroit
book or
Red.
you watched the movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, straight from the mud. So what do they focus on? NOI. They focus on do for self, right? Um, Entrepreneurship, earning within your community. They focused on family structure. Not everybody was married, but they focused on, they wanted people to get together and get married. Not because it was the balloon pop game and they wanted everyone to have romance and all that. No, they got them together because they understood, like, you need family structure. So
Right.
there was a lot of tenets that are now typically pushed in the Republican Party, right? I'm not saying people have to be Republicans. I'm just saying that there are characteristics in these games that we're kind of tripping on. So what happens is that on the left, some of those things that are pushed, and they, like, just to your point, Ian, they brand everybody, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all Medgar Evers. They were all liberals. No, they
They
were
were
they
not at
they were
all.
not liberals
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of what we see today. So a lot of the good qualities. My point is, a lot of the good qualities in some of our historical leaders are now lost in what they're associated
Right.
with. Is the point. So I just wanted to touch on that, because the family structure, community focus, working together, and even Dr. King. We all know as he went along, his stances were changing. He was evolving. He was only 39. Malcolm X was only, at the time he passed away, was also 39 or 40. So these guys were young. They're all younger than most
Dr.
of us
King was
on the
in his
panel.
young 20s when he led the Montgomery boycott. A lot of people don't
Of
know how
course.
young these
So I
folks
just wanted
are,
to touch on that right there.
and folks were during that time because they were assassinated and they were involved so long. Folks don't realize they weren't of old age. They don't realize Rosa Parks wasn't an old lady like we describe her to be as well.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I mean, look, I love us, and I love us so much that you know, and as and it does hurt, and as
Well, where do we go? I wanna move it along also to a point because again, I don't think these conversations are about, like, again, I always tell people I don't have all the answers, but I do think these are great brainstorming conversations, and not to everybody to sit in their corner and disagree. Um, and if we do disagree on things, it's okay because I think it's about, I try to find understanding. So I want to ask everybody, or I want to challenge everybody, what do you think should be done going forward, or how do you imagine the
well,
future?
I
You know,
need you
how do
to
you imagine?
small. I need that's a very
More
what
specific?
subject are we on? I need you
Okay.
to bring that
Yeah,
here, so I know what we're. I know.
absolutely.
I want
I
to
can
know
get
what
more.
we're
I can
answering. Right.
absolutely get more specific. You got it. So specifically for the future, is it realistic that we can have? Is it the goal? Should we be focused on Black communities? So is that something that you envision in the future? One. Also, education. We talked about it, but I just want to talk why I touched on, or why we're touching on education. Uh, we also have a lot of the lowest reading scores, lowest math scores, and things of that nature. So how do we forward ourselves educationally outside of the federal government? How do we push ourselves forward
Right.
educationally? Is it possible? That's two. And
Before you put
let
too
me
many
finish. Go
things in the
ahead.
pot,
Sure.
let's start with the first one. You know, should
And then
should
we're
we
going to
do
pass it around.
community? Should our focus be community? The answer to that is absolutely positively yes, because any successful
Okay.
minority group in this country focuses every successful minority group in this country focuses on community.
So how do you see that
Well,
happening is my question. I want everybody to tell me specifically. Give me like a 1 minute. How do you see it happening
all
if you
right,
see it
I see it
happening?
happening. First, we have to understand the difference between community and neighborhood. A community, we have us looking, our businesses owned by us, around the residents who look like us, all supporting and circulating one another, and building wealth and keeping that situation circulating with the plan
Okay.
of taking some of that wealth that we're generating and putting it into making sure that we're backing the right local politicians, et cetera, so on, that are going to further certain policies and programs that we need in our communities. Also,
Okay.
improving on, and all these donations. We have the money in our community. If we didn't have the money, other folks wouldn't be setting up shop in our communities. And
Correct.
taking these monies and directing it towards, we need, like the brother in Newark, he got washing machines and stuff like that up in there because he saw the need for kids that needed to wash their clothes and all this other stuff, creating situations to improve the books, this, that, and the other. We don't need other folks permission to teach our kids what we want them to learn. If they
Right.
have a certain curriculum as opposed to a particular guidelines according to the state and local, federal, and all the other stuff, we have our additional programs like other communities have, and they teach from the perspective that they want their children to learn, not
Okay.
from the oppressor's point of view. Slavery, for example, is
Okay.
not black history. I'm going to say that again for the
Right.
people in the back.
Right.
Slavery is not black history.
Yeah.
How we survived slavery is black history, and how we
Okay.
went on from there to thrive and whatnot.
Is another story.
We
I
also
want to
have
I
to
want to pass it
recognize
around to
after
everybody.
after slavery, and I'm going to land. I
Um,
promise, I'm going to land. After slavery, our trajectory after slavery with regards to our acceleration and learning and things of education and all that, and work, it was a rapid acceleration because when folks needed workers, people to do certain things, we were the most qualified. We were the ones. We
right.
knew how to toil the soil. We knew how to build them houses. We knew
Right.
how to do them things. So they needed our our knowledge to do the labor. So we were, and then we
Yes,
were built. We did a lot, and we had so many
of
communities
course.
that we developed. If we look at from the ending of slavery officially in 1865 to, you know, 20 years after that, how many communities we had thereafter. And people, we only know about folks, we know about Tulsa, but they don't know about the communities within North Carolina and up here in New York City area, where they have
Absolutely.
Central Park now and so many other areas and so many that are underwater in Georgia and whatnot. We had thriving communities everywhere, and the other folks saw that, and out of jealousy, they came through and destroyed them things because they saw us
Sure.
thriving, not just surviving. They saw us thriving,
Right.
and the jealousy of that and whatnot. Blah blah blah. Okay, somebody else.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So I'm challenging everybody. What do you imagine? What do you see? Because we agree on the past for sure. What do you see in the future if so? If we're
I
going to do
mean,
it, how do you
for
see it?
me, I agree with Ian, and I think it's community. I work in education, so um, it- I I think as parents, not all, but a lot of parents look at school to teach their children, and I think it's totally reversed. You teach your children, the schools reinforce that learning, and I think the issue is how we don't now that when I went to school we had homework every night. I can't even tell you when my son has homework,
Bro,
and
Facts.
that's a
and I
full
get it
sermon.
because
Facts.
when I was teaching, I mean when I was in school, I hated getting homework, but I'm like now I hate the fact that they don't get homework because I don't they don't I don't know if they can retain any of the information that they're not paying attention to begin with. They're students. I get that part. So I think as a community and going even smaller than everything that you were mentioning, Ian, just if we came together as a community, we could impact everything. It's just our communities are we're just well, I don't want to say broken, but we're just separated. We don't come
Individualism.
together in our communities, and we because those same unwillful children that are willing to learn, if you get the right male in that
Mm,
community to speak to them, they can speak that life into them, but they holding these gas. You're afraid to talk to these people on the street, thinking they might shoot you 2 seconds later when you try to talk to them. But if you find that right person, you can get to them. But we got to come together as a community to do that. And as far as to tie this into education and our rest, um, I tell everybody, and just in my school, they don't want me. I don't need to be in schools because I speak my mind way too much. I just say you really need to stop testing everybody. You already know they're low. What are you testing them
Amen.
for? Just to, I mean, you get this funding. If you want to fund things, don't fund something you already know the answer to. Stop testing the kids. Let teachers teach the children because all you're doing is teaching a test. And if you're teaching to a test, that's just rote memory. I'm just answering questions for a test. That's not learning. So you need to let teachers teach, and then we can worry about testing a little later. But if you're testing them every time they're trying to teach, you're not moving a needle, and these needles aren't moving, and that just goes for all these children, and let alone our children, because we were already 2 steps behind. So we're not getting anywhere. So, but just tying that in, but community and education, yeah, I think that's where we need to go, and that's where we need to start.
And I think we need to get back to a point. I think it's kind of Ian kind of touched on it, or at least mentioned it. We need to get back to a point where we are teaching our kids that like there's nothing wrong with like trade school, like learning to do. Moving beyond just I want to be an entertainer. No, there's other avenues you can take to be a successful and you know what I mean. So we need to get back to that, learning how to do
things.
things, just things in general. That's just we missed somewhere down the line. We dropped the ball on that, and it became not so sexy to want to be the electrician. You know what I mean, or the plumber, or whatever it is. But those things are out there. Those are sustainable jobs that will always be there. And we just kind of skip over that because we try to jump right to what we think is the sexy job, the cool job. We want to, so we need to get back to teaching the basics and the fundamentals on how to sustain ourselves. And if we can get to that, we might be okay.